Hello everyone, good evening. Welcome to day three of our JavaScript programming class. We've been looking at JavaScript from Monday, so we've talked about a couple of things. We've looked at like some introduction to JavaScript, like declaring variables, some data types, strings, and numbers. Today, what we're going to be looking at, I am just going to show you some things about methods, objects, and functions. But as usual, I am going to go over what we did yesterday a little bit, then take some questions before I introduce some more stuff. Like I said on Monday or yesterday, the goal is to be able to use JavaScript to manipulate the DOM, right? HTML DOM. So this is where we're going to, but we don't want to jump into DOM right now because we want to be comfortable, want to be a bit comfortable with JavaScript, right? So we can be able to manipulate the whole HTML document with JavaScript. Okay, so I'm just going to go to my bullet points to help me go through what I have for today. So I wanted to kind of talk about something right before we start today. So it's very important, even if you can't create time, right? It's very important to practice whatever we learn during each class. Or okay, it's very important to just take out time to learn or practice everything about Java. Not everything, sorry, just practice JavaScript daily, right? So this material or this W3 Schools has what we call exercises that can help you, right? If you maybe don't have a structured way of going through them, right? You can just come to, let's say, JavaScript exercises and just take some little chunk bite exercises to help you maybe remember what you've learned, right? Like creating variables, right? So these are just step-by-step exercises you can just use to test your memory before we get, our assignments are always on weekends, but you can just play around with this every day. So we have data types here. I think data types, we talked about strings and lengths and objects, right? So you can come to exercises to practice, or you can use quizzes, right? So if I go to JavaScript quiz, it's going to bring out like a timed quiz and to just be asking you questions, right? So you can practice with quizzes. I think this is script. You can practice with quizzes, you can practice with exercises, or you can use in lesson. Each of the lesson has a try it yourself little portal where you can play around with the JavaScript code. Okay. So every time you always I always advise at least 30 to 45 minutes a day. Okay. So yeah, with that being said, let's go to methods, right? So yesterday I touched on methods and what methods are, right? So I'm going to just go over it again and see if any of us or a few persons are confused about what methods are, because we are going to be using methods a whole lot. Like, so even this code we are using to manipulate the HTML, right? They all have methods. So get element by ID is a method or a function. Then inner HTML is a method, right? So basically, a method is a bit of functionality that is built into the language or into specific data types. Methods are actions that can be performed on objects, right? So we have data types and we have methods on every data type, right? So if I just go to our data types lesson, I'm going to see that we have, let me see if they provided a list. We have strings, we have numbers here, we have JavaScript strings. And if I go here, you're going to see string methods on this list. I'm not going to click on it. We have JavaScript numbers. If I go here, we're going to see number methods, right? They are arrays and they are array methods, right? So basically, I think they are objects and they are object methods. Let me go to object. We're going to see object methods, right? So here's what you should know. All data types, right, has a bit of functionality that is already written for you by the language or the creators of the language, right? So you can use it to kind of perform more actions on a particular data type, right? We played around with string methods, so I'm just going to go back to string methods again. And if you get to string methods, you're going to see some additional features you can use to play around with strings, right? So if I go to my code editor, this is how to declare a string, right? This is a string variable, but there are additional stuff you can do to like kind of add more functionality or get more info from the string, right? So maybe when we start like kind of manipulating them, we're going to see the use of all these functions firsthand, but we just need to kind of learn them and kind of know they exist, right? You can play around with strings, you can slice them and end them and other stuff. So all these are called methods and they are accessible with the dot operator, right? So if I go back to my code, and say day is a variable. Remember, let me zoom in. So day is a variable. So if I say day dot and day is a string, right? So if I say day dot, it's going to bring out all the methods, like all the default methods attached to the string data type for me, right? So if I change day to number now, let me say 2, and I try to do day dot, it's going to bring all the methods. You can see the methods are changed. I don't know if you can see. Can someone confirm they can see? Sharon, can you see this little pop-up mode that I have? Yeah, because last time I think you guys were complaining we're not seeing this, but if you can see this, so these are just additional methods on the number type. Okay. Can someone confirm they can see this?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, so this is if you like kind of the way to access methods, if you don't know them like off the top of your head and you use VS Code, just type the name of the variable and hit dot, right? It's going to kind of give you options, but you have to know what you want to use, right? So to fix, to precision, these are all methods. So see them as additional capabilities given to you by JavaScript, right? You can do a whole lot of things with them. We're going to see use cases. Hopefully we'll have time to see use cases for majority of them. So number methods. Number methods gives you some default methods to use to kind of format and play around with numbers, right? So string method converts a number to a string. So exponential method returns a string with a number rounded up, and so these are just mathematical mathematical methods to help you. Maybe if you're building a math or a calculator software, right? So 9.65. So these are just kind of methods to help you format numbers. Well, please let me remove this dark mode. Okay. Then to fix, I already played around with this yesterday. If I try this, if I open up the editor, or let me try this on my code. If I open up the editor, right, so to fix, like if you say X, I think X has 3 decimal places, but if you use X dot to fix 0, it's going to format it and round it up to no decimal place or 0 decimal place. So methods are just additional capabilities or additional functionalities that each data types have. Every data type has their methods. Okay. So we played around with string methods yesterday and a little bit of number methods. So today I'm going to go into array methods and object methods. But before I do that, I'll just look at arrays again. And before I go to the array methods, right? Because there are a whole lot of stuff you'll be able to do with arrays. And when we get to like the HTML DOM, you're going to see that most of the HTML elements, if you want to access them, you're going to kind of access them via looping on by looping on the arrays. Sorry, okay. So I'm just going to go back a little bit before I go into what I have today, objects and functions, then comparisons. I'm going to just explain arrays and objects, then go into array methods, okay? So again, I'm sure everyone here is comfortable with declaring variables, right? But an array is a special type of variable, like we said yesterday. It can hold more than one value. So this can be 100, like 100. Like so, if I go to my code editor, let me copy this. So I can put 100 records in there. So just give me a minute. Let me put up my server. Save this. Yeah. So I can have like hundreds of records in this, and it's still going to work perfectly, right? I can replicate this times, let's say 10 or 50, right? And it's still scrolling my page for me. I don't want to do that. So let's use console. So let me use the console, output this in the console. Then I can just comment this out and do console.load. Okay. So I can have as much as, so right now I have just 12 records, but I can have as much as 100 records, right? So JavaScript arrays it's still a variable, but it's a special type of variable that allows you hold multiple values, right? So why use arrays, right? So you might want to kind of list a group or create a variable of a group of stuff, right? Like our food recipe project from HTML, right? You might want to kind of create a variable that holds all your types of soup or all your types of dishes, and you can just put them in an array, right? So there are different ways to create an array, but the syntax, what you should know is the syntax for an array is you use the keyword, call the identifier, then assign it to a block braces, right? So this is an array, this is valid. If I save this and go to my console, I'm going to see an empty array. So this is how you declare an array, right? An array is declared by putting this like two block braces, right? So when you start adding values, you start giving it values, right? So I think I've forgotten what was inside all this. And stuff like that, right? So you start adding value to the array. So again, the syntax is like the keyword array name, then curly braces with items in it. You can list as many items as possible. Okay. Yeah, we talked about accessing array elements, right? So I'm just going to bring this back to when we had 12 elements. So I think I have repeated elements here. I'm just going to clean this up to 3. Yeah, so we have 3 elements, right? So the way you access array elements, right? So maybe you have a list of 100 dishes, right? And you want to, let's say, this is our P tag, and you want to display, maybe a particular type of food or car. The way you access array elements is by calling the index, right? So they all have index. I explained this yesterday, right? So in indexing in JavaScript, or very much every programming language, starts from 0, right? So the first element has an index of 0. If I just go back, yeah, you can access an array element by referring to the index number. Array indexes start with 0, or whether it's an object or by when you're looping or anything. We're going to get to those today. You always have to remember array indexes start with 0. So if I want to console out the first element, I'm going to do cars index 0. Okay, so this is the syntax for accessing an element in an array. If I go back and check, you're going to see I'm going to get sub. So, but right now I can just come here and do document.getElement by ID. I'll put in cars index 0, right? Rather than using console this time. And it's going to change our P, the value of our P tag to sub. I am going to we're going to do a more descriptive example today. I'm going to use DOM manipulation, even though we've not gotten there, so we can see how all these stuffs are being used. Okay, so I'm just going to go. Yeah, you can change an array element. You can access the full arrays, but you can do more things with arrays, but they are all array methods, right? So let me see. They listed some of array methods here before I go to JS array method, right? Let me see the length property. So we saw these methods on the string. So arrays too have the length property. So I can do, maybe I'm trying to check something in my application. I want to see how many cars I have in my cars variable. I can just do cars.length, or maybe a typical use case for this. So let me just output this first. If I do cars.length, it's going to give me the amount of cars I have in my variable, right? 1, 2, 3. But a typical use case for this, right? So for any length method, I can do, maybe if I have a working application, I can do if cars.length. So if the length of cars is greater than 3, say like maybe console.log, we have 3 cars, or not really 3. So because I might not know the actual amount of cars.length plus cars in stock, right? I think this will look good. Let me see. Did I console it? If cars.length is greater than 3. Oh, see, it didn't work. We're going to get to conditionals, right? So cars.length is not greater than 3. Cars.length is 3. Let me say if cars.length is greater than 2. Okay. So right now in my console, I can see we have 3 cars in stock. So this is just some kind of an example of how we can use these methods to create some dynamic stuff, right? But I am going to use more descriptive examples later. So the length property, you can use it to know the actual length of the amount of values or the number of array elements in an array, right? So there are other methods you can use. They listed them here. You can access the first element of an array, right? With calling the index. The last element, you can access the last element. So in a case where these array elements are up to 200 and you don't know like the actual like what's okay, for example, right now, because I can see this, I can just do, let me take this off for a while. Because I can see this, I can just do console.log array index 1012. I can just do array index 2, right? And if I go to my console, I'm going to see BMW. But in a case where maybe you don't know the length of the array or how many elements are in it, there's a kind of handy little mathematical trick you can do. Fruits, using fruits instead of cars.length -1, right? So this is going to output, no matter how, even if it's 1 million elements, it's going to output the last value. We're going to kind of learn how to do all this much later, right? So looping through arrays. So there's another topic we've not gotten into that is called loop, like JS looping, right? This is just kind of let me see more descriptive text for it. So this is just what looping does in JavaScript, right? It takes maybe it does a particular command over and over again for a particular length of time, right? So I'm just going to give an example here. So here they have an array of fruits. You can see this, and for example, they wanted to display it like this on their web page. So we might have a variable like this, but we need to kind of display it out on our web page to look beautiful, right? So what they did here, let me see what they did here, right? For each of so what this command just means, if you've not worked with loop, we're going to get there. So for each of the array elements, they built a list. I'm sure everyone knows how to create this in HTML, right? So this is UL, LI stuff, kind of. So this is a typical example of how you can mix JavaScript and what's it called, HTML, right? So for each of the array elements, they built an LI and appended one of the fruits at a particular index, then closed it, then added it to the page, right? So if you do this, you're going to get the list of all the fruits. I can change this to cars, right? I can change this to our cars array. Let me see. And if I run, it's going to list out our list of cars, right? So we are going to get into looping later. So I don't want to kind of explain that syntax, but the point is there are a couple of methods that you can use on arrays and play around with arrays, right? So let me just go to array. Let me go to array methods, right? Before I move to objects. So if I go to arrays, I'm going to see some ways to kind of play with arrays, right? So the first one is converting arrays to string. I can take this whole array and just convert it to one string, right? So if I do cars.to string, and check my console, have console.log cars.toString. Okay, so this is the issue. So string. Yeah, so it's just going to convert the whole array into a string. So this can be handy maybe if you want to just compress everything, but it's not advisable if you have a very long list of variables in the array. The join method also joins all arrays into a string. But a sweet thing about the join, you can kind of put in maybe something you want to use to append them, right? So if I open this now, let me use my code editor. So this looks a little bit too bulky. If I copy this and go to my code, I say fruits, banana, orange. I want to kind of display all of them. Like, so here's a command, right? So I said, if you want to kind of call any array method or any data type method, you put the dot sign or you just do dots. Then what we want to do is join. But I want to join it by putting a dash sign in between all of them. What happens if I change this to our display? And I hope I'm not confusing anyone by doing this. Then go to my code. It's going to kind of list out or just join our whole array without the block braces and append the dash sign I created in my code. So these are just kind of additional methods you can use to play around with array. So there's this very, very important one. This is one of the reasons why I came to array methods today, right? You're going to be using these two a whole lot, right? Popping and pushing, right? So you might want to kind of delete an element from an array or add an element to an array. I think the one you're going to use mostly is pushing, right? So if I have a list of elements in an array and I do fruits.pop, I think fruits.pop is going to take out the last element from the array, right? So I'm going to just take this back to my code editor because it's a little bit clearer. Delete this. Is that so? We have fruits, banana, orange, apple, mango, and I do fruits.pop. If I display fruits or console.log fruits, it shouldn't have mango at the end, right? Expect console. Yeah, so if you can see, we had 4 elements, right? Banana, orange, apple, and mango. Calling fruits.pop just deletes the last element in the array irrespective of what it is, right? So these are just handy methods we can use to play around with arrays. So again, I cannot go over all of them one after the other. We all have this link. You can come here and just play around with them and just get familiar with them. But in general, just understand that every data type has methods, and methods are just additional capabilities that you can carry out on each data type, and you can assess methods of a data type by calling dots on that variable, right? So if this was a string, so for example, if I do, okay, let me declare cars as just one car, right? Volvo. So if I save this, if I try calling cars dots, it's going to give me methods for strings, right? But if I change this to fruits and try to call a method on fruits, it's going to give me methods of arrays. So I'm not going to use the push. I didn't talk about the push. I'm going to push my name into fruits, right? If I console.log fruits, you're going to see my name as a 5th element here. So the push command just adds, so I can maybe, let's say in my application, in my browser, if a user does something, I can just say, okay, if this condition is met, I can just say fruits.push or users.push and add an element to my variable and use it later. Okay, so you can come here and just play around with different array methods and what they do. Okay, I'm just going to go to objects before I move to some important fun stuff, right? So I'm going to talk about comparisons and conditions later. Let me go to JavaScript object, right? So again, I said I was going to talk about this again today. So objects, right? So objects, it's a data type in JavaScript, right? So object just gives you, let me see, all cars have same properties, but blah, blah. all cars have the same methods, but the methods are performed at different times. So basically what object, the flexibility object gives you with variables, right? You can add additional info to a variable. For arrays, you can group, excuse me, for arrays, you can group a list of related items and assign it to one variable. But for objects, what you should know is you can add additional details to just one particular variable, right? So in our case, I think we had cars. Let me just go back a bit. I should see my cars variable. Yeah, so we had cars, just Saab, Volvo and BMW, right? But object gives us the ability to add more info about one particular car. So I can have, excuse me, the name, the model, weight, and color of a particular car, right? So yeah, so objects are variables too, but objects can contain many values. This is the text I was looking for, right? So this could assign many values to a variable named car. So if I copy this and use my code editor now, I'm going to get rid of all this stuff and paste it, right? So const car equals, so this is the syntax. So before I go too far, so if you can remember, let me just type in both of them, const cars, curly braces, right? So this is the syntax for creating objects in JavaScript. I mean, in other programming languages, it's called something different. We're going to get to those, but in JavaScript, it's called objects. Objects are variables that has key value pairs, but arrays are declared with these block braces. Objects are declared with curly braces. So we just have to kind of get familiar with the differences, right? So these are arrays and these are objects. Okay, so objects, the difference between objects, right? So for arrays, I can just add elements to the list, right? I think the first one was Saab, Volvo. So I'm just adding individual lists, individual items to the list, right? But for objects, I can afford to give key value pairs. We call them key value pairs, right? So I'm going to type in one example, right? And explain what's the type value fiat, right? So this is a typical example of key value pair, right? Excuse me. The type, it's the key. Then the fiat is a variable. So again, this is how you declare objects. The difference between objects and array or any other type of variable is that object can store key value pairs. I can add in another descriptive detail about the car. I can put color and save it as maybe yellow, right? So again, you can save or you can. An object is a data type in JavaScript that gives you the ability to save variables in key value pairs. So the sweet thing about objects now, right? I can access any of these. I can put hundreds of what's it called? Different properties about this car and access them later in my code. We're going to get to how to access them, right? Okay, so object definition. You create a JavaScript object with an object literal, right? So this is curly braces, then key value pairs. Spaces and line breaks are not important. We talked about that on the first day, right? Object properties. So, okay, they use name values here, but it's also called key value. So you can just say the name value pairs in JavaScript objects are called properties, right? So this is the key. Okay, so these are the properties of the object. So this is the key and this is the value or name value. I'm going to show us how to access them shortly, right? So accessing object properties. You can access object properties in two ways, right? Using the dot notation, right? So if I want to access, let's say, the name or the type of the car, I can just do console.log type of, okay, let me not use a string, let me just output it, right? Car.type. So mind you, I'm seeing this here maybe because I know that the value, you might be seeing it here because you know the value is fiat, but most times if you're building programs, I assure you, like you won't even know the values of most of what you're doing, right? That's why it's called dynamic. That's why it's called being dynamic, right? So I can just do car.type. If I check my console, I'm going to see fiat, right? So more these stuffs are used maybe in application that has user authentication and stuff. It can be used to maybe, I can use a condition that if date, maybe let me see a typical usable use case. So maybe if I can just maybe use JavaScript to get the system date, new dates, and just if it's today or if the date or the time is morning, I can use it to just greet the user, or I can use it to bring out a particular, so a typical, let me change this to person, a typical, user. A typical user object will be first name with other stuff, right? So first name can be Sammy, and last name, I'll just put in my last name. Then maybe I can go somewhere in my code and say if day equals morning. I don't want to write that condition now, so I'll just go through console.log good morning. Okay, I typed in the name accurately. Then I'll just do. So mind you, my program, I might not know the value of the first name of the user, so I'll just do user.first name. So this is just like a typical example of how some stuff are being dynamically displayed on web pages, right? Again, we're going to go into all of this when we start doing DOM manipulation. We're just learning how to use objects, arrays, and variables. Did I spell this wrongly? Object, arrays, and variables to get to this, okay? Okay, so you can access object in two ways, right? I can do object name.property name, which is what I did, user.first name, or you can just use bracket notation, but you can just stick to this because it's like easier to understand and easy to remember. But still, I can just change this to user index first name, right? So it's going to pick up the first name value and still provide the same results, but you can just stick with object.property name, okay? So again, same way array has methods, object has methods that can be used on them, right? So methods are actions that can be performed on object, right? So let me see if they give us a method I can play around with, okay? So functions, let me see. So let me just show you, let me just try this, right? So a sweet thing about object, right? I did not say this. You can save anything in object, right? I can save any type of data. I can say age equals 23 or 230. Then I can say is male equals true. So this is a string. This is a number. This is a Boolean. So you can see that I can save any type of data type in object. Then I can put a function, right? We're going to get into functions shortly, and I'll explain to you what this is if you don't know what functions is. You can put a function and return the first name plus the last name to be full name, right? So if I go back to my if true statement and just console good morning, let me just change this, right? So let me just change this to take this out, console good morning. Let me just take this out. I want to, okay, yeah, so good morning, user. I want to consider log user.full name. I want to see the full name of the user, right? Dot full name is going to throw an error. Okay, it's going to bring the function. I did not invoke it. Yeah, so can you see this? It's going to kind of join my full name and bring it back to me. So we're going to talk about functions later, but I just try to show you that one powerful stuff about the user, the object is it can save any type of data, I can put an array here, right? I can say badges. How do you spell badges? I can make it an array, right? Forgotten the different badges, so I can just say this and so on and so forth like that, right? And I have arrays, function, Boolean, number, and string in an object, right? So this is just the flexibility that the object data type gives you. So okay. So these are other methods. Let me see. Okay, exercises. So I've just gone through basically the last two topics we touched yesterday, right? Arrays, objects, and array methods and some object methods, right? I want to go into talking about functions, comparisons, and conditions. But if you have any question as relating to arrays, objects, or something is not clear, or anything we've talked about like earlier today, you can just raise up your hand and just ask a question. I'm going to call. Okay, hi, Omo.
Hi, Sammy. Good evening. Sammy, please take it easy, small. I just doing. We are just in the chat room asking, hey, Chineke, switching is too late.
I think you will check the chat.
Take it easy, small. We're just flowing the go. Please, that's just all I want to say. Just small. Thank you.
I didn't even notice the chat. Okay, if I was too fast, I'm so sorry about that. I'll take it a little bit slow. Are you serious? Yeah, Omobi.
Hi, Sammy. Thank you for everything. It's like magic. Please, can you explain that array again?
Okay.
And calling an array, the difference between that one and objects, please, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go over it again, so I won't run to, let me see, arrays, right? So again, we're talking about data types, right? So JS arrays is this, yeah. So an array is it's like it said here, is a special type of variable, right? So previously, what we knew about variables or how we declare variables was that variables only hold one value. I'm just going to comment this, then come below and just start a new line. So I can say let's program Blackfoot, right? I'm sure everyone is comfortable with this, right? This is just the basics of what we did on Monday. So this is a typical variable, right? So okay, let me use something more discrete. Let's program equals Salesforce admin. Okay. So this is just typical, like just one type of variable, right? So imagine you want to create, like you want to have access, maybe in your program, you want to have access to all the programs Blackforce is offering, right? I'll have to do program 1, program 2, by saving them in different variables, right? Program 3, program 4, and program 5. And I'll change this to Salesforce, I'll change this to Sales Cloud. You understand, right? Like that. But what array does, right? It helps you group, similar, or it helps you group, similar items into one variable, right? Or it gives you the ability to create a list of values in one variable. So rather than doing this, I can come and say, let's programs equals a list of programs, right? So I can put Salesforce admin, Salesforce developer, and maybe sales and service cloud. Let me just put this and take off the rest. Right? So right now, I can have as much as 100 Salesforce. I can have as much as 100 programs in here, and it's going to be organized. So maybe later in my code, when I'm doing stuff, I know that I have one variable that has a list of all my programs, right? So if I do console.log programs, so maybe later I output programs somewhere in my web page, it's going to give me a list of all the programs I have. Okay, so there are other, like, I know it might be a little bit fuzzy, right? Because I'm not showing you much use cases for this, right? So let's say, let me try use one of the array methods, right? Let me see if there's a find. And I'm just going to look for Salesforce. This is not confused. I just want to show you something. Okay. So let me not do that. So basically, right, array just helps you group related items. So it gives you the ability to add more than one value in a variable. Mind you, I can put numbers here, right? I can put 23, 54, 32. I can put a variable here. I think someone asked that yesterday, right? So if I had the variable, let's name equals Sam, I can put the variable in here, Sam, name, right? And so on and so forth, right? So arrays gives you the ability to add multiple values in one variable, while object gives you the ability to store values in key value pairs, right? So with an object, you're still going to create one variable name like a container, but you have the ability to store more data or more details about a particular value. You're going to get more comfortable with this maybe when we just like kind of use it. But what you should know, object saves gives you the ability to save values with key value pairs, and array just helps you save values in a list. So the difference between arrays and objects, right? With objects, you can easily access a value if you know the key, right? So let me just we already did here now, like let me delete this. So maybe I think it's the function that made it a little bit, or let me take out everything and just leave first name and last name. Okay. So with objects, I can access what's it called? First name or last name, because I know the keys, right? So I can do user.first name. If I go to my console, I'm going to get good morning, Sammy. But one thing with array, right? So let me use the same example. If I put in this array my first name, last name, right? So if you can see, it's the same thing with what we have in the object. But with the array, if you want to access it, right, you're going to use index. But most times, you might not know the index of a particular value. So if I do, the reason I'm doing programs is because I can see it, right? If I go to my console, I'm going to see Oko. But the majority difference between object and array, object has key and value. So you can call the key, it will give you the value. But for arrays, you have to do some other computations, which I don't want to go into now, to get the particular value you're looking for. Or more. I don't know if that helped.
Yeah, it does.
I think that was Omobi. Okay.
Thanks. Yeah.
Okay, Omobi. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm looking at it. So Ola.
Yeah. Hello. Good evening, sir. So basically, the way I see it is when you're talking about arrays, okay, like you're talking about objects. Okay, let's use cars as an analogy. You're talking about Volvo, BMW, different cars. When you're talking of array, you pick one car and you talk about the values of the car, right?
Can you come again with that? Sorry.
So when you're talking of array, you pick one car, one object. I mean, when you're talking of object, you pick one particular car and you talk about the values using the key pairs of that object of that particular car.
Yeah.
But for the arrays, you're just listing various cars.
Yeah.
Multiple cars.
Yeah, so that's correct. So let me just go back to Saab and BMW. Right. So I'll just change this to cars. Right. So yeah, with arrays, you're going to have to with arrays, it's going to be a list of cars without additional details, right? But the sweet thing about objects, right? I always try not to go too deep, is you can have this list, right, and have more details about each of them. So what I just did, let me just use one example. Car. This was what we did the first time. So I think it was name, Fiat, so model. I don't know, maybe 209. So basically, right, so if you can see, this just helps you give additional details on one particular car. This is a little bit better than this, right? But I can even go further, right? If I comment this out, I can give my cars variable like this. Then remember, objects are key value pairs. Then I'll say for my sub car, I'm going to have object and object as value. Then name, maybe Fiat, like they said. model equals 2003. I can duplicate this for other cars. So an object gives me flexibility to add more detail. Sorry, not that. What's the command? Yeah, an object gives me flexibility to add more detail to a particular variable, right? So if I do for BMW, you can see I have cars, but right now I have additional details about each cars. So don't let me not stress or let me not kind of bulk them, make some stuff more complex with this. Just know that object gives you ability to add more details with key value pairs. On Y arrays, you just have to list in your values and access them individually.
Okay, then my second question actually, when you're using, when you're talking about the arrays and you're trying to delete the last value in the list, you use the pop and you use the last, I don't know what you call it again. When you use the pop, it removes the last value in the list, right?
Yeah.
Because what confuses me right here now is you used the number because you used last and you minus one or something because you counted not using 0, 1, 2. You counted using normal count 1, 2, 3. So you're able to pop the last one.
No, I didn't pop out a value with an index, right? So if I go back to JavaScript array method, okay, I'm still in arrays, right? So let me just look for it. So pop, those methods, right, are already written be under the hood by the language, right? So I don't need to pass in any parameter or add anything. So let me just look for it. New. Why can't I find? It should be on this page. Just hold on, sorry. So I am just going to, can't find it anymore. So yeah, so basically, right, if I do cars.pop, I don't need to add any other thing, right? It's just,
I mean, when you want to, okay, does this normally pops the last?
Yeah, it will delete the last. If I hover, so if you see this description, it removes the last element from an array and returns it, right? So this just deletes. I think what you were saying when I wanted to access the last. Okay. So this is the thing I did, right? Cars index cars dot length -1, right?
Yes.
So basically, and what this is, so if I take out this stuff now, and remember in JavaScript, you can do arithmetic anywhere. If I do console.log cars index 0, what is it going to return? Just looking at it before I go to my browser, what is it going to return? It's going to return the first element. Yeah, it's going to return sub. So if I go to my console, we're going to see sub. So why I showed you that, why I did that, right? And sometimes you won't know the amount or the length or, the amount of values you have in your array. So if I do cars.length, what is cars.length is going to evaluate to? Just looking at it now. 3, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Remember, cars.length gives you the length of the values in the array, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I do cars index cars, and you're going to have to get comfortable with nesting because you're going to be nesting a whole lot of things. So I know this might be what confused. If I do cars.length, which is 3 minus 1, or let me just do it here. Okay, no, so cars.length -1. But let me just do it here, right? Cars.length.
Yeah, this is where exactly I am. Cars.length -1.
Okay, what is cars.length? Cars.length is what? 3, right?
Cars.length 3.
Yeah, -1. 3 minus 1 is what?
You see, that's where I am now. When you did cars and you put the curly brackets and you put 0, it was a sub because you started counting 0, 1, 2.
Yeah.
When you do cars.length, you start 1, 2, 3.
So here's what I'm trying to let you understand, right? Remember when we talked about JavaScript and say let Z equals to 2 times 2 plus 3, right? We said it's going to evaluate this and assign 5 to Z bar, right? Sorry.
Yes.
Thing with this, right? If you understand clearly, right? If I do cars index 0, it's going to pick up the first index. So if I do cars index cars dot length minus 1, it won't do anything until it computes the value of this first of all. So it's going to compute cars dot length. Cars dot length is 3. It's going to change this to 3. 3 minus 1 is what? 2. It's going to now change it to 2. So it will now be cars index 2. And cars index 2 is Volvo. Do you get that? If I go to my console now,
okay, cool.
So it computes before it even runs this console, or before it runs anything, it does the computation and uses the value to run its expression.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Sorry, Sammy, please, do you want to say that again?
Okay, so what you should know, right? Maybe when nesting or whatever you're doing with, like, we're going to create complex expressions, right? I'm already worried. I wanted us to build something by next week, but we're going to create complex expressions. What you should know, right, is JavaScript always does computations first before it runs the code, right? There's what we call hoisting, but I don't want to go into that now. So with an expression like this, let me remove this console log statement. Maybe it might be causing confusions. So if you like, remember when I said accessing arrays, where you can access arrays with cars and the index. So if I change this to 1, it's going to access BMW. You're aware of that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you want to, let's say why I brought up this example, right? So this is just a mathematical trick to use to get the last element of an array. Let's say I can't see, most times, right? It's because we are doing an example. I can't see this value. I don't know what this is coming from an external server or my Salesforce org. I don't know how many values are in the array. So let's assume that, and I want to display the last value in the array. And I don't know how many it is. I don't know what it is. So you can just use a calculative trick, right? So you can do cars.length. I'm sure there's a method on the array object that the length that it returns the total number of values in it, right? So cars.length, whoever, if this is 100, let me make this, let me add some stuff here. So maybe this, sorry. Right, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So cars.length will first of all, JavaScript will first of all evaluate cars.length. Cars.length is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in memory, this will change to 5. I'm just showing you how it's being run. Then before it runs this code, it's going to evaluate 5 minus 1. 5 minus 1 is 4. So right now, we just have cars index 4. And cars index 4 is 4. I think 0, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, cars index 4 is 4. Then it's going to display.
Thank you.
Yeah. What's one?
Hi, Sammy. My question is, can you use let to declare objects instead of the const?
Yes. They are all variables. So you can use let. I can use let. I can use const for arrays. So yeah, the same principle we talked about in variables applies. Consts. I can use var. I can use var for each of them. So they are all variable names. You can use the same principle.
Okay, all right. Thank you. That's my question.
Okay.
Sorry, you said something about you're building something next week.
Sorry?
You're saying something about building a project next week.
Yeah, no. I'm quite worried, right?
I think you should let us get to the weekend in one piece first.
I'm quite worried, right? I wanted us to build something for next week, right? But I'm going to see how we're going to kind of I'm going to take my time to go through functions and all that stuff. But no worries. Me, everyone is going to get to the weekend in one piece.
Yourself, you know this is not fun, right?
Me?
Yes, now. Is it fun? It's not fun for us now.
I know it's going to be hard at the first time, right? So it's I don't expect everyone to just kind of know it automatically, right? So it's going to be hard, but that's why I've been kind of stressing on practicing for at least 30, 35 minutes a day. It's really good.
Fun. Let it be fun for us. So thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Sammy, is it possible to have like a tutorial or recap every end of the week, just to just to refresh?
Someone asked that yesterday, so I'm going to confirm, because I think I asked. I'm going to confirm that. Who asked? So let me get back to you. I'm going to post like the feedback in the group so everyone can see that.
I think that would help. Thank you.
Hear me?
Yeah, thank you, Sammy. So back to the program, I just wanted to understand the calculation there. When you declare the array, this array 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my expectation is it should return the fourth value as.
Okay.
Yeah. So you said, so you were counting, you said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 minus 1, 4. So you should return the fourth value, which is BMW. But you counted it as, but you said it's going to return 4, which is a fifth value. That was what confused me there.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a very good question, right? So if you remember, if I go to my arrays, you're going to see that arrays are assessing arrays. I hope I'm on the right page. Assessing arrays, right? So you can assess an array element by referring to its index number. Array index starts with 0. So this is not just in JavaScript, right? Every programming language. So this first element is 0, right? This is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. Okay, but what you need to know, right? If you're using the length method, cast.length, it doesn't count 0, 1. It counts it like it gives you the amount of value in the total array, right? So the amount is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 values in this array, but the index of each of them is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's where the difference is, right? The values are 5. So cast.length is going to return 5. But the index of each of them, the highest index is 4. So assessing it and the length are two different things, right? So the length is 5. But if you want to assess it, the highest index is 4. So if you pass.length, give you 5 minus 1, 4.
Yeah, I understand it now. It's clear. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, Gito.
Hi, Sam. Evening. I was going to ask, right, do the units also apply here? Like we have the pixels, units.
Can you come again? The who? What, sorry?
The units equally apply here.
What units?
Okay, like you have the pixels and let's say yes, but if you declare variables, do they come with units? Just to indicate what you're talking about exactly. I know we've been doing a lot of text and all that stuff.
By pixels, I'm trying to get you asking if we can use pixels in JavaScript or units.
No, not. I just use that as an example. I'm just asking if there are units here in general.
So units and pixels are, these are two different. These are two different words, right? So you should know that units and pixels apply to each of them have their syntax, right? So if you're talking about like maybe unit measurement units, right? Those apply fully in CSS. JavaScript works with data types, right? Strings. So I don't know if you're talking about maybe we're going to get to using or manipulating CSS with JavaScript, right? You can practically type anything in strings. So if you type in 100px, it's going to work so long as it's in quotes. Well, I'm trying to understand your question. If you're asking if there are measurements in JavaScript.
If you do the 100, it's just going to render it as a text. That's what you mean.
Like this, yeah, it's going to render it as a text. It's going to render it as a text.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Ben.
Thank you, Sam. So probably this could be maybe one of the things you will be teaching in maybe in subsequent graphics, but I just want to be sure. So how will you know what the index number of whatever value you want to call out in an array be? Especially when you have many values in the array.
Okay, that's a nice one. So you're saying, let's say if we have 10 values here, let me just try create 10 different values here. I'm looking for names of cars.
That one is not difficult.
Yeah, let's just leave it as 5, please. I can't think of any more.
Benz.
Thank you. Yeah, so let's leave it as this.
Tesla.
Thank you. Tesla. So I think this should be okay.
Infinity.
Before we get up to 50s, okay. So yeah, she asking how do you know let's say you don't know all these values coming from somewhere and you want to know how do you know a particular index of a value in the array, right?
Yes.
So yeah, it's a nice question, though we've not gotten there like you said, but that's where array methods comes in, right? Yeah, a bunch of methods you can use to do some nasty stuff. Let me go to array methods because I don't have them off the top of my head. Okay, let me pop, see what I was looking for. Pop, push, just hold on, shift, not changing length, not concat. Yeah, I can. Okay, let's see if I know the name of the text. Let me just try to do something. Let's what we are looking for. Let's car. Let me just let car equals cars. I'm just going to do something I've not talked about. Filter. Right? So again, these are methods you can use. Filter where element equals. So I'm going to get the index of Volvo now. So just watch. Right declared car up. Let me comment this out. So Ben, just stay with me. Let me just kind of type it out.
I got you.
Volvo. Okay. Let me change this to shine. Shine so okay. Okay. A little bit complex. Yeah. So Ben, what you're asking is going to take some kind of computation that I won't be able to explain right now because I'm going to deal with some functions and some calculations, but it's a good question, something we're going to handle maybe in further classes, but I won't want to start explaining that now because it's going to arouse more questions. But the thing is, I can use methods to find a particular. So here's what I wanted to do, but I'm looking for the particular method, right? This is a method on the array, obviously. The find method looks for one particular element. So I'm looking for another method called find index. I have it here, but I don't know why it's not working. Find index. Let me just show you something. Class.find index, right? So if I use this find index, I can get the particular index of an element, but I don't know why it's throwing an error.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine so that we don't really delay the class. Yeah, we can get back to that.
I'm going to check it out and paste it in the group chat, but there are methods for virtually everything you want to do.
Okay.
There are methods for that. So yeah, thanks, Ben. Let me just go.
All right, yeah.
You can go ahead.
Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, hi, Sammy. So I have a question. You know how the object you called them, you wanted to call like the first name of the object. So you said the name of the object dot then like first name. So in Salesforce, when we're trying to get like a specific field and we're creating something like that, sometimes we go like object dot, like along the objects to get to a specific field. So is it kind of this like the same logic this is based on?
Yeah, so good question, right? So what you need to know, what you're going to know is the concept is the same, but the syntax is different. So if you've worked with formula fields in Salesforce, let me give you a typical example where you insert field, you pick, you select an object, you go to the related object, you're going to see something like, let's use contacts. Okay, if you know, contact is a standard object. Let's use let's use plan. See something like the C dot internet MBs or stuff like that. It's the same concept, right? Here I do car dot name, right? But the thing is, the syntax is different. So this is a Salesforce syntax of how to like reference an object. This is a JavaScript syntax, right? So the concept is the same. For example, we have objects in Salesforce, right? All objects can be accessed like this, but the syntax is the concept is the same, but the syntax is different. So that's just what I wanted to say. And yeah, you're correct. So it's the same way we access stuff in Salesforce, but Apex, like Salesforce syntax, is different from JavaScript.
Okay. And so when we put in the R, like, for the related list, and then we only do the C for the last one, is that based on Apex or just?
Can you come again?
Yeah. So how when you were doing the plan dot something, how when we're doing it like a full like merge field, like full, then we always put R for related list instead of the C, right? Yeah. Except for the last one. Is that based on Apex?
Yeah, so that's like what I just said. Those are Apex syntax, right? So Apex compiler understands what R or .R means. So that's all Apex. So JavaScript has its own syntax for everything.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, so I am just going to continue and see how I can take it a bit slowly, right? I've talked about objects, so let me just talk about functions and comparisons, right? So if we can get, if we maybe try and we can get conditionals comparison functions with loops, I think we are good for this week, right? But everyone needs to just try and practice on his or her own if you are not really comfortable with all this, right? So I'm just going to go to functions. Let me see just the introduction to functions, right? So we've talked about variables, arithmetic and operators, then data types, right? So let me see, objects and arrays and methods, right? So I wanted to brush on functions, then touch on other stuff before we go today. So JavaScript functions, I hope I will not be too fast with this. JavaScript function, right? JavaScript function is a block of code designed to perform a particular task. So this is where it becomes a little bit fun. I know some persons say I should stop using fun. That is not fun. Let me just clear this. So JavaScript function helps you perform actions and enables like kind of like how I put it. The JavaScript function is executed when something invokes or calls it. Let me give an example before I move forward. So like every other thing, like declaring variables, the JavaScript function has a syntax, right? So the syntax is the keyword function, then the name of the function. So I can call it my function like I have above. I'm just going to comment this out. Then I'm just giving you the syntax, parentheses, then open curly braces. So this is the syntax to declare a function in JavaScript. You're going to call the keyword if the same way we did with variables, right? You have to call the let, const, or var, right? But to declare a function, you have to call the function keyword, right? So I'm going to do function space, the name of the function, right? Today's function, then parentheses, like opening and closing brackets, then curly braces, right? So this is the syntax to declare functions, right? Again, a JavaScript function is a block of code designed to perform a particular task. I explained to us yesterday that if you want to create a block, when I was giving difference between less and const, this is a block in JavaScript, right? So opening curly braces and closing curly braces depicts a block. So a function is a block of code in JavaScript designed to perform a particular task. We're going to see that shortly, right? So our functions allows you to do cool stuff, allows you to reuse code and keep your codes clean, right? So let me just give an example of this before I go further. So for example, if I'm building a calculator and I need a multiplication function, let me just make it simple. An addition function, let me just say function sum, right? No, let me just say number one. I'm going to explain what these two stuff means. Number two, then return number one plus number two. Plus. So before I run this, let me just kind of explain what I did here. I mentioned that functions are is a block of code designed to perform a particular task, right? So I'm just trying to give a typical example. I can maybe create a function that sums two numbers for me, right? So if we remember our first day when we were doing let's z equals 5 plus 7, I can create a reusable function that does this for me. So whenever I want to add two numbers, I can just call this sum function, right? And it's going to add the two numbers and return a value for me, right? So let me just write out this thing again. Function name or my function. Call it, right? So if you can see, I put in the parentheses here, but here is empty, but here I have values, right? So if you want to pass in variables or numbers, or we call them arguments that you're going to use inside the block of the function, you call them, like you add them here. It's called arguments, right? And you can put as much argument as you want. I can put A, B, C, or okay, let me use descriptive names. I can put argument 1, argument 2, and so on and so forth, right? So what this means, right, is if I declare this function, I can pass in values, right? I can pass in different values. So function gives you the ability to reuse the same block of code for different values, right? So let me use our sum function as an example. So for example, I declare a function sum, and I want to pass in two numbers, right? So if you want to sum or if you want to create addition, it can be more complex. The basic is to add two numbers, right? So what I'm doing here basically is saying this function should return the addition of number 1 and number 2. I'm going to try it now. If I do, if I change this Z or my text context to, to Z, if I go to my page, I'm going to see 12. 5 plus 7 is 12, right? So I can change this to our sum function. So this is, if you want to call a function, maybe I've declared this function. This is like a template. I can use it over and over again in my code. I can just come and say sum. I want the sum of 5, and 7. So this is how we call it function invocation. This is function declaration, right? So if you can see, this is just like a template, right? I can use this 100 times in my code, passing different values. I can change this to 500 and 700. I don't necessarily need to put the plus sign here anymore because it's doing it internally for me, right? So if I just take this now and say let Z equals sum 500, 700. This is going to add 500 and 700 and return the value and assign it to Z. If I save this now, I'm going to see 1,200. So basically, right? So function just gives us the ability to kind of write reusable blocks of code. And if you create the functions with arguments, you can change what you pass into the function and get different results, right? I can change this to 52 and 51 and 700, and I'll get a different result. So function helps keep your code clean. I'm just trying to kind of breeze through it, but we're going to go through the material shortly. So with functions, you can do amazing stuff, right? You can do, you can with just this example, you can build a calculator, right? So for example, I have, let's say, let me make it 4. I have function multiply, function divide, function, what's the last one? Subtract, right? So with this, I can multiply, let's say, what's multiply? Yeah. Just trying to give you an example. The functions can be used for more stuff, right? Subtract is subtract, right? So basically, right, if I have all these templates, right, I can do amazing stuff in my code by just calling this function. Remember, how you call the function is you call the function name and invoke it. So this is how you invoke a function, right? So let me not just kind of do much. Let me just go to the material and read some stuff. Okay. So the JavaScript function is defined with the function keyword. Remember, I said this is the keyword, right? This is the keyword. For variables, the keyword to use to declare variables is let, const, or var. But with functions, you have to call the function keyword, okay? Followed by a name. So the name, there's no hard rule about the name. You can name your, but always be descriptive with, we're going to get to like kind of, what's it called? We're going to get to style guide and best practices, right? So it's always good to name your functions or your variable names with something descriptive, right? So I can name this with function X, and I know it's going to subtract these two numbers, right? But it's always good to name which is something readable, right? So the how to declare a function is keyword name. I just say calculator, then followed by parentheses. So keyword function, name of the function, then parentheses, right? With opening and curly braces. So this is how you declare a function. Then you add codes to it optionally. So function names can contain letters, digits, underscores, same rules as variables, right? So everything we know about variables is everything about function name, but I cannot start a function name with a number, right? I cannot start a function name with a number, but I can give it text and add numbers to it. So these are just kind of conversions we already know. Hi, please, can you please mute Akin? Sorry. Thank you. Okay. So the parentheses, so by parentheses, it's talking about this. Let me just open this up and reduce this so there'll be no confusion. So the parentheses, right? By parentheses, we mean the opening and closing this bracket, opening and closing bracket, right? The parentheses may include parameter names separated by commas, right? It's called arguments or parameters. So I can give param1, param2. I just don't know descriptive names for now, but you're going to have to put maybe, let's say, first name. If you want to compute, or if you want a function that will pass maybe a user's details like last name, and you can pass in as many parameters as you want, right? You can pass in up to 5, 10, but it's always good to just keep it short. But what you need to know is you can pass arguments into functions and use the values inside the function block, okay? So may include parameters separated by commas, right? Parameter 1, 2. So the code to be executed by the function is placed inside curly braces. So this just
Oh, it looks like we lost Sammy.
Oh, really?
Maybe it's internet.
Guys, please bear with us. We're trying to get Sammy back. Thank you.
Amabi. Amabi.
Yeah.
Can you continue with the class while we wait for Sammy?
I wish. Anyone can continue.
Come on now.
I think Omobi, I think you are the right person to do this.
I beg you, I will pass. Anyone will do a good job.
You people should not sleep or wake up. Wake up. Sun is still coming.
Is the class still on?
He is coming. He's coming.
That is very welcome. Our head will cool down small.
Maybe he has gone to look for a project.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you, Sam.
Welcome back.
Thank you for the break. Welcome back.
Intentional. Okay, so I guess I was explaining functions. I was explaining functions before I had the internet issues, right? So I'm just going to try quickly wrap it up, then give some examples, right? Can you guys confirm you can see my screen?
Yes, yeah, I can see your screen.
So yeah, I basically kind of explained to us like 3 times how you write and use functions, right? Function keyword, then the name of it. Parent. Please, can you please mute? Okay. Yeah, so keyword, function name, parentheses, then block of code. We're just going to go into examples very soon. The arguments are the values received by the function when it's invoked. Okay, so this is more descriptive, right? So function arguments are the values received by the function when it's invoked, right? So if I pass in arguments or parameters here, let's say A and B or C, this can be descriptive names again. So let me not use just A, param 1, maybe a value I want to use and param 2, right? So those are function arguments. So they are the values received by the function when it's invoked. We're going to get into function invocation. So inside the function, the arguments, the parameters behave as local variables. We're going to get into that soon. So function invocation. So if you can remember, okay, let me just declare that function again. Sum 1 plus 2. Okay. So the code inside the function will execute when something invokes or calls the function. So just doing this, right? So this is what I want you to know. Just doing this, right, will not make anything happen, right? So it's just like declaring a variable. Let's sum equals okay, let's variable names let me just use x. Let x equals sum. So just declaring this here just saves this in memory, right? It doesn't output anything, it doesn't do anything, right? Same thing with declaring this function here. It just saves this stuff in memory, right? It creates a variable in the memory named sum. It doesn't do anything. You need to do something we call function invocation, right? So when an event occurs, okay, the code inside the function will execute when it invokes, right? So to invoke a function, you call the function name with parentheses, right? So if you can remember, let me do that again. When I did, okay, if I do let z equals sum, right? So if you just do this sum and I save, it's going to just return a function. Let me go back to my documents. Okay, can you see this? It's just going to return the whole function sum. Like it's going to go to the memory, right? And just pick up everything you declared and return to you. So to call the function or to call this action, right? This action you created or whatever code you wrote in here to run, you need to do what we call function invocation. And to do that, you pass in, you call parentheses, right? So this is how you invoke a function. Let me just open it up. You put these 2 open and curly braces. So when you invoke a function, if you declare the function with arguments, you have to pass arguments. Or if you did not declare the function with arguments, you can just invoke it this way. So I'm just going to kind of demonstrate the 2 examples. I declare the function with arguments, right? So 200 and 300. If I save, it's going to add and give me back 500. But if I didn't call this function or declare it with arguments and I just did return, let's say return, okay, let's say I now created the variables here, right? Let's param1 equals 200. So this is me hard coding variables, right? Let param1 equals 200. Let param2 equals 300. Return parent 1 plus parent 2. If I do this, I don't need to pass 200 and 300 here. And I just invoke the function without any argument. It's still going to return 500. But this time, I had coded the values. So again, you need to understand that you can pass in or you can create functions with arguments and use the argument in the function, or you can declare your own variables in the functions, okay? So let's just go back and let me just try breeze through it, right? So this is how JavaScript functions can be invoked when an event occurs, when it is invoked and automatically. So function return. So this is what I just did, right? I returned a value and I did it with the return command. I want to just do some examples so we can just see how it works, right? So this is a typical example. I think I already did this, but let's just copy and paste it so we can get actual working example. So, okay. So this is where they declare the function, right? Function, my function, it collects
Can anyone hear Sammy, please?
I think he's gone again.
Hi guys, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry about that. I'm having serious issues with my network. Okay, so I'm just going to try to wrap this up quickly so we can take questions about functions. Okay, let me just redo this so I'll get back to what we're doing. Okay, so I was just trying to explain this example I copied from W3 Schools, right? So again, keyword, function name, parentheses, arguments or params, then you can play around, forget that, okay, maybe this is just one liners, right? You can play around with the params or with every, you can write you can write a full-fledged code inside here, right? I can let result equals A times B, then I return results, right? So rather than using one line, I can just do this, and I can do huge computations inside here, but we don't want anything complex for now. So if you can see, they used it here. Let me bring this down. So let x equals, they invoked this function and passed 4 and 3. This is just exactly what we did earlier. If I change this to x now, I'm going to see 12, which is the product of 4 and 3 on my web page. So these are just function basics, right? So you can reuse code, define the code once and use it many times. This is one of the powerful things about using functions, right? I can create this function, maybe I call it my function and multiply, and I use it 150 or 200 times, right? There are some common functions. We're going to see how to kind of separate some abstract codes into functions later, but what you should know is you can use function. You can do a whole lot of things, right? I can use this to get to this date, though there's a function to get to this date already in JavaScript, but I can create my custom function and reuse it in my codes, okay? You can use the same code many times with different arguments to produce different results, right? An example is converting degrees or weather, right? So let's just try this and see. Then, okay. Cost to Celsius. So again, let me clear this so I won't confuse anyone. This is the function. This is a typical function of what we'll be doing. Don't mind this. This is the formula for converting Fahrenheit to Celsius, right? It's 5 divided by 9 times whatever is passed into the function minus 32, right? So this is just a mathematical calculation. So if I try this, let me say, let results equals to Celsius. Let me convert 70 Fahrenheit to Celsius, right? If I paste in result into our browser, I'm going to see the answer. I don't know, that is 21.11111, right? So if I change, the idea behind this example, if I change the figures, it's going to give me different outputs, right? 0. Let me see 50. 10, right? So this is just one of the powerful things or powerful usages about functions. You can reuse code and just change the arguments being passed. Okay, so I already talked about the invocation operator, right? So using the example above, this is how you invoke a function, right? So accessing a function without this parentheses will return the function object instead of the function result. I think we saw an example of that where it outputted the whole code we wrote, right? So if you don't call this parentheses, your function won't work. Okay, so I don't want to load with too much info. So I'm just going to go back and explain what functions are. So a function is a block of code designed to perform a particular task, right? For example, this is a block of code. The task it performs is to convert Fahrenheit to Celsius. You can do a whole lot of things, right? You can, let me use another descriptive, what's it called? Let me say function, get, right? I'm going to put first name, last name, right? So this is like something more descriptive. Then I'll return let's say, then I'll return first name plus, remember, concatenating strings, last name, right? So I can use in my code, maybe if I'm building a software that just has maybe a first name and a last name, and I want to display a full name like hello user or hello full name, I can just create a utility function like this and call it wherever I want to use it, right? So if I can just, I don't want to make things complex, but let me just go back to our user object, right? Const user equals this, first name, Sami, last name, my last name. So imagine we don't have a full name for the user, right? I can do let full name. Maybe if I want to use it, this is just, I'm just trying to give an example of how we can use functions, right? I can do get full name, and I'll pass in user.first name and user.last name. Remember, I'm accessing these variables, right? Sami and the last name. So I'm passing it to this function. So what this function does is it joins both of them and returns one string for me. So I'm going to have the full name variable. So if I paste this and go to my browser, I'm going to see a full name, right? So this is just another way you can use function, not just for numbers and calculation. You can use it for a whole lot of things to just create reusable blocks of codes. Okay. Yeah, syntax again. Syntax is easy. The function keyword, the name of the function, then parentheses. So you can play around with this. There's an exercise at the end. Yeah, there's an exercise at the end that you can play around with, right? So to just get familiar with all of this. But okay, I don't want to do the exercises. So does anyone have any questions about functions? I know we didn't use too much example, but just in a nutshell, functions are just like a way to create usable pieces or blocks of code, and they are blocks of codes that perform some kind of tasks and actions. When we get to maybe DOM or other stuff, we're going to see how we're going to kind of use all this, especially in what's it called, comparison. But I don't think I have time to look into comparison. And seems everyone says I'm too fast, so I'm just going to take it slow. So if you have any questions on function, can you just please raise your hands? Let's see. Okay, so no one has any question whatsoever, right? Yeah, okay. So I'll just go ahead, but again, as usual, I'll still come back and touch on this and give more examples, maybe when we come for our next lesson. Okay, but I'm just going to try and let me see if I can play around with the examples again, if it's still a little bit blurry. I'm going to delete this. Let me delete this. And go to functions. Okay. Yeah, so I want to go into that for now. So I have two more topics on my bullet points. So I'm just going to go into comparison, right? Before we close for today, since no one has any question of functions. But basically, we're going to be using functions a lot. I think, in fact, we've already used functions, just that you've not been aware of it. So if I go back to our const cars, see if I can remember our cars. BMW, right? So for these functions without like kind of knowing, so this is just a story that we're going to be using this stuff a whole lot, right? So when I did cars.pop, this is a function on the array object, right? So if you look at it, but this is where like a clearer understanding of method comes in, right? So methods are functions that are already written by the language, right? So we did not write this function, but we are calling it. So this is, if I do, okay, let me not go into that, right? So this is a function on the array object, right? So if you remember, let me try declare a function again, function sum a, b, return a plus b, right? So in this case, we declare the function and we can call it with sum, right? But for other array methods or other data type methods, they have already built-in functions for us. We don't need to write or declare them, but we can just call them, okay? So we're going to be using functions a lot, and we've already used functions in some places, but we can adjust that. And I remember I did cars.join. I passed in maybe a dash sign or a star sign, right? So this is another function on the array object, just that we did not declare it. It's already written by the language for us. So we're going to be playing around we're going to be playing around with functions, and we're going to see how to use functions as we go forward. I want to talk about comparisons in the next 10 minutes, except someone has any question. I want to talk about comparisons before we go. Comparisons, right? Comparisons and conditions. So, yeah, I wrote something here that is a little bit important to know. So Boolean is a result, right? So all comparison operators return a Boolean value, right? So in JavaScript or in programming in general, you're going to have to do a whole lot of comparisons, right? I don't know if you have heard of if, else, or switch, or all the conditional statements, right? Majority of those depend on comparisons. So comparisons are just kind of checking values between like two operands, right? So comparison and logical operators are used to test for true or false. And I said here, it always returns a Boolean is the result, right? So maybe when we get to conditionals, you're going to see something like if this, do this, or like else, do this, right? So if whatever I compare here, if 5 is greater than 2, so this is just an example of a comparison, right? It always returns true or false. If it's true, it runs whatever code I place inside here. If it's false, it runs this, right? So that's just basically what comparisons does. So, and there are operators we use to compare values, right? And mind you, I can compare strings. If Sammy equals maybe if maybe variable, right? Let's say if name equals Sammy. Remember, the single equal sign is an assignment operator. If you want to compare or equality, is double equal sign, okay? So comparison operators are used in logical statements to determine equality of or difference between variables or values, right? So this, I don't even need to go to my code, right? This table just kind of helps us, gives a like visual representation of what comparison does, right? So if you can see this operator, the equal, like double equal sign means equal to. So let's say we are comparing a variable and its x is equal 8. So is x is the value. So maybe let me see what the voters or what variable they created as x, right? So okay, this is more descriptive. Let's say let x equals 5. So they compared is x equal to 8. So is x and 8 the same thing? It will definitely return false. Okay, so you can just like kind of see from here and know what it's talking about. They are just comparison, and it always returns a Boolean. It returns either true or false. And when you get to conditions, you're going to see how to use use comparisons and run conditional statements, right? I don't want to go too fast on this, so I'm just going to kind of stop here and let me just take more, right? So the equal, like double equal sign means equal to. So I'm checking if the value in x is equal to 8, evaluated to false. X equals to 5, evaluated to true, because x, the value of x is 5. So I can just do this in my code, right? Let me take out everything and select x equals 5. Then I'm going to output x equals 8. So if I put it in curly braces like this, JavaScript is going to evaluate it. Remember, it will convert this to 5 and run the calculation for me. It's going to evaluate it and give me a response. And the response of comparison is always a Boolean value, true or false. Okay, if I save this, where's my document? And I go to document, it's going to display false because x is 5, and I'm trying to check if 5 equal to 8. So there are many comparison operators we can play around with. There is a not equal to, like so x, and I think we already have all this in. If you're familiar with Salesforce, we already have some of these as if you've created workflow rules, validation rules, process builder. We already have all these equality and comparison operators, right? So when you select a field, value, and I think the term is operator, right? So there's not equal to, there's not equal to with type, equal type. Then these are kind of the easy ones, greater than. So I can check x, is x less than 8? This will evaluate to true, definitely, right? So there's greater than, there's less than, there's greater than, equal to. So this is what everyone here has already played around with. But the difference is Salesforce was giving us a user interface to just select it via drop down. But with this, you have to understand it and write it yourself, right? So if you want to write greater than or equal to, this is the sign you're going to use. So let me just use, is 5 less than or equal to 8? Is going to evaluate to true because 5 is less than 8. Okay, so these are just comparison operators you can play around with. Then, okay, it already shows how you can be used, right? So, but before you're able to understand conditions, switch, loop, other stuff, you need to be familiar with logical operators and conditionals, right? So everyone can come here, and I guess I can say everyone is a little bit comfortable with comparisons, right? Because we've done comparisons a lot in Salesforce Administrator, but the difference is you're going to be writing it by hand in JavaScript. So you can come to this page, JS comparisons, and just play around with them and see how they work. So when we get to conditions, you're going to see like how to use them: if, else, if, else, switch. And the if statements are still in Salesforce, right? So you have them as functions. So if value equals true and value equals false, just that it was given to us on a user interface, but in JavaScript, you have to write it yourself. So I'm not talking about this now. I'm going to kind of focus on conditions tomorrow, conditions and comparisons, but you can just come here and kind of look through JavaScript comparisons and see if you can pick one or two. Okay, so I think that'll be all for me from today. Does anyone have any questions? If you have, like, might not be about comparison, conditions, or functions. If you have any question relating to like what we've done so far, you can just raise up your hand and I'll take your questions. Yeah, hi Sharon.
Sammy, hi. Sammy, so my question would be, so which of this what's the word now? Not the operator. So which of this strings, arrays, and all of that, which of them would we encounter mostly in our Java journey?
Java?
Yes. Are we going to encounter all of this, or there's some that would just be more frequent?
You're going to encounter all of it, right? So it's good to ask that question. See, what you just know, right? The concept is the same. The syntax is different. So everything you see here, you're going to see it in Apex and Java. But it just is a little bit different syntax based. It's you can just get familiar. Let me know. Yeah, you can just get familiar with it, right? The sweet thing about this, right? If you learn JavaScript, right? If you learn one program, if you understand the basics of programming and learn one programming language, you have it will be easier for you to learn. You won't learn Java from scratch. You won't learn Apex from that because it's the same concept. The only thing you need to learn is the syntax. I can just use a few days to learn any new language I want to write. I'll just need to learn the syntax. I already know the concepts and the paradigms. So if you learn JavaScript or if you just practice this and learn, understand objects, arrays, variables, is the same thing. Variables from C to C++ is the same thing, right? If you understand variables, how function works and all, you're going to have a steep. So you're going to learn other programming language easily. So you can just take your time and learn this bit by bit. We still have time. This is just day 3, and I think everyone is already. This is just the 3rd day, right? We still have time. We're going to kind of open up. We're going to understand more. Don't worry.
Amen. I see a loop, JavaScript loop. Would that be working? And as working like flows? Those ones, would they have the same logic like flow in Salesforce?
Flow. It's a little bit different. Though flow,
it's different. Yeah, it is.
It's more powerful, right? Does more amazing stuff. But what loop just, like I said, loop does one command over its iteration, right? So if you have a list of something, or let's say an array of something, you can write a block of code. It will apply that code to each of the elements in that array. So it's quite different from flow. Flow does some amazing stuff, right? So loop just does one piece of just executes. Okay, so this is the definition. Loops can execute a block of code a number of times. So if I have an array, I can say for each element in the array, add S. So I can, let's say if I have an array of numbers, let me use numbers because 5, 7, right? I can create a loop that says for each of the elements or each of the elements of this array, add 1 to it, right? So let me just do that. Let me just say numbers new const updated numbers. This is just sneak peek equals numbers.map. See plus 1, right? If I console.log updated numbers.
Sammy, this one that you just wrote now. This
hold on. I'm explaining loops, right? Can you show it? Explaining loops. Can you show it to the array?
Yes.
So
Along, you brought question and now you're complaining. Then Sammy will just be having his own cruise.
I did want to go into all this, right? So basically, what is the loop to tomorrow? It just runs a particular piece of code on a number of times. So sorry, okay, let me close that. So I'll not confuse you. So let's just take it step by step, right? So I could have just opened this up on the first day, right? But I'm trying to kind of use building blocks to just go over all this, each and every one of these. So this is a function. What I just did here is a function, but you have to just understand how to be comfortable with functions before you see that this is just easy, but you might think because of the syntax, it's a little bit confusing. So we'll just take it step by step, then we'll practice whatever we've learned. And the more we go ahead, the more it becomes easier. Is that okay, Shalom?
Yes, Sammy, it's okay.
You'll be fine. Right. So I have no other hands up. So we're going to see tomorrow again, and I'm going to go over the rest of the basic stuffs I have before we get into DOM manipulation. I'll confirm about the tutorial, the weekend tutorial, and get back to everyone. Ben?
Oh yeah, thank you, Sammy. I'm just trying to compare the different keywords that we've been using from the let and all that. And I see that the function keyword, of course, we're going to have the function name followed by the function name and the argument or the parameters in parentheses, right? Before we now maybe return or something. So I just want to confirm that the function name is more like the variable, it's more like the identifier that we've been, working with, right?
Exactly. In fact, it's a variable. It's a variable. It's a You just call it's a variable. So
okay.
You can
just
see
want to
that.
be sure. Thank you.
So I'm going to confirm about the tutorials and the day for the tutorials and get back to us in the group. Okay, so aside that, we're going to see tomorrow to complete what we have. So thank you very much and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Sammy.
Thank you, Sammy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sammy.
Thanks.